Howdy, we're back. 2 days in a row. Welcome to the Colonel and the Kid podcast. I'm your host, Greg Heitmann, and we're up and running again today because I got some edits done on chapter 41 of the Colonel and the Kid memoir. So we're going to do the podcast today, read that into the record, get going with that, and not too much extra stuff, not too much peripheral things because we just had the podcast yesterday. So I'm excited to start volume 3. The third season of the podcast, The Colonel and the Kid. And of course, the background I should share is the Colonel is my grandfather, Lieutenant Colonel Edwin P. Hagen Jr., my mom's dad, my maternal grandfather. Maternal grandfather, that sounds better. So obviously, maternal grandfather because his name was Hagen and my name's Heitmann, so that indicate that that's my mom's dad. And I put together this memoir of my grandfather, the Colonel, and that would make me the kid. I don't know if I mentioned that. The Colonel and the Kid. Put together the memoir to, I guess, just preserve the memories of my grandfather, honor his just his memory, his time here, lessons he shared and passed on to the family, including myself. And I tasked myself with recording those memories, and hopefully they live on forever in written form, audio form, and video form. So for those of you watching this video podcast on YouTube, you get to see the photos and enjoy some extra, I guess, just extra visuals that go along with the written memoir part, which is written and documented but not shared on anything yet, any platform. Eventually, be the third volume of the Colonel and the Kid memoir. It'll be taking a spot next to volume 1 and volume 2 on Kindle that you can find on Amazon. But right now, there's nothing of volume 2 or volume 3 yet. Volume 1, you can go and buy a copy if you want on Kindle, download it to your iPad or computer, and check out all the photos and see the writings themselves. But for now, I'm just working mostly striving to get the electronic copy of the audio and electronic copy of the video into the record, and then eventually put that onto Kindle also. But so pretty good day. It's June 1st, 2026. We're kicking off the first of the month with the first chapter of the third volume, chapter 41, the pheasant hunting, part 3. And this is a pretty good chapter. It's a little bit longer and it's got some photos. So we'll get ready to jump right into that. And then I don't have much else to share. So this might be a little shorter. Hopefully, maybe we can keep it under an hour. Stay right around an hour. That's pretty good. Otherwise, it gets to be more burdensome trying to get all the editing and fixed up before I can get it published. But whatever length it runs. That's what we're going to do and work with and keep going forward. So, this is dedicated to this podcast and the memoir and everything. The Colonel and the Kid memoir is dedicated to my grandfather, but it's also been very beneficial to me as far as just like some psychotherapy. That's what I've always been talking about, that just writing these thoughts down and providing some introspection on my own thoughts and life and just, thinking about it, seeing how it's going, maybe making adjustments here and there. But it's been, I guess for me, I feel it's been highly successful as sort of some psychotherapy. And I encourage anyone else that wants to do something like that, just do it. Just start writing it down. You don't have to do a podcast or anything, but just make some notes on your computer and have just an ongoing journal of what you're thinking about and how your life's going, how to make it better. If you want to try to make it better, I encourage everyone to try to make their life better if they can. You should try that. But started this podcast to do that, just to document my grandfather and his relationship with me, and it's turned into something else. We got some recurring segments, and so the memoir is the spine, and it kind of branches off from there to some other things and sports. And I think I've labeled this a cultural podcast and genre of when, the publishing side of things, where you have to kind of pick out what it's going to be, whether it's political, sports. But I called this culture, leaning towards sports, because talk a lot of sports, especially I kicked it off during the NFL season last year in September in 2025. So the NFL and my NFL analysis had a huge role in filling a lot of a lot of my podcast time, for good or bad. And I think I'm going to do some adjustments this year. I don't think I'm going to include the NFL talk on the podcasts, the main podcast itself. I'll have a separate podcast just for talking NFL, I think, this year. If I do that, I probably will. More than not on the sports update coming up. But let's just go ahead and jump into the chapter, get that read into the record, and test my reading skills, my oral reading skills once again, put to the test. It's been a little bit of a hiatus. Been a month since I've read anything into the record, so I have the chapter. I read it recently with the edits, so I should be fairly familiar with it. So it should be a little cross your fingers. It's going to be a little smoother than if I'm just reading it cold after writing it 5 years ago and finally get this stuff done and published into some sort of record. And this is a record because I think they do give me a copyright on my podcasting. So I consider this the official record of the podcast, the Colonel and the Kid podcast. So here we go. Season 3, Volume 3, Chapter 41, The Pheasant Hunting, Part 3. And as always, we start with the quote. If you turn the imagination loose like a hunting dog, it will often return with the bird in its mouth. End quote. So that's a quote from William Maxwell. He's an author. I should have looked up the date on that. But I like that. This is the Pheasant Hunting Part 3 chapter, and so it involves dogs. So he's got to start with a good quote that involves a dog. All right, let's get started on the chapter. Grady and I hunted pheasants together in Falk County a lot. It was almost routine, something I look back now and know that I took for granted. So when Dad and Grandpa came over to hunt, it was special. We even had one rare occasion to have my cousin Jackie's husband, Bill Ferguson, as a guest for a weekend. Bill and Jackie, along with their 2 kids, traveled from Sioux Falls to join the hunting party. And we have our first photo for the chapter. I'll read the caption and then I'll try to describe. And for the video podcast on YouTube, I will upload this actual photo. But for those just listening, I'll just do my best to describe. The caption reads, The crew from Falk County pheasant hunt from October 1997. From left to right, Grandpa, me, Bill Ferguson, Grady, and Brandy, Grady's black lab. In front of Bill, Mickey, my chocolate lab, is hard to see in the shadows, but she sits patiently for a photo. My dad, Gary Heitmann, is behind the camera taking this picture. So this is a photo out on the prairie of Falk County. I don't know how far this was from Grady's ranch, probably 20 miles as the crow flies. And as I said, it's Grandpa, me, Bill, Grady, and the 2 dogs. And we're kneeling down in front of some just prairie grass that's been mowed, I guess, mowed and baled up. And it's just a beautiful October day. Blue sky. It's probably, probably around October 20th or between October 20 and Halloween. And it's a beautiful day. We're just wearing t-shirts and light caps, baseball caps, and blue sky, a little bit of blue sky poking through, a little partly cloudy with some blue sky in the background, and grass is all turned brown, and it's definitely fall. And Grandpa's got his actual sweatshirt on with his shell vest, his hunting vest, and orange cap. And I got an orange cap, just a white T-shirt from says SDSU, South Dakota State on it, and Bill's got a T-shirt that says Padres training camp, and red baseball cap, and then Grady's got a Texas Longhorn T-shirt and a camouflage cap. I don't know, it must be like a seed cap there from a seed company. And then off to Grady's left, there's Brandy, his black lab, really good hunting dog. And then there's Mickey, chocolate lab, kind of just barely see her in the shadows there in front of Bill. And everybody's holding up some roosters, some pheasants that we got during the hunt that day, and really a good indication of a great hunt. And it's interesting to me because Grandpa's smiling, actually smiling for this photo, for the hunting photo. It's weird. And me, I'm partially smiling, but Grady and Bill are looking very stoic, serious at the camera as they get their picture taken. And then we have a follow-up picture, similar picture, and I'll read the caption, then describe. I'm not sure if we filled the 5 allowable limits, a total of 15 roosters that day, but it was a productive day. I took this photo of the squad, and from left to right, we have Grandpa Hagen, Gary Heitmann, Bill Ferguson, and Grady Heitmann. Brandy, Grady's black Labrador Retriever, sits to his left. And again, Mickey, my chocolate Labrador Retriever, is in front of Bill. This is a great picture of the South Dakota Prairie return to grasslands, showing up in the background, October 1997. So another photo, but this time I'm taking the photo, and my dad is in the photo. He's wearing like a button-up Western shirt, I guess, and he's got an orange cap on. I think that was my orange cap that I was issued for my officer training school, and it says AMS. I can't remember what that stands for. I think it's like Academy of Military Science. When I was commissioned as an officer, that was earlier that year. I had been down in at Tyson McGee Air Base in Tennessee, going through my officer's training school for 2 months, and I think that was in I want to say it was in like February or March or April, somewhere wintry spring time frame. So a blast from the past, seeing that orange cap. But my dad he wanted to wear an orange cap so he could be seen out there hunting pheasants. Hopefully prevent from being hit by some stray shot from the shotgun. And it worked. I don't think anybody shot anybody that day, which is good news. But back to the chapter. I don't think it could have been a better fall day in October to gather and chase roosters on the prairie, miles from anyone else. It was like we were the only ones in the world, a peaceful respite for everyone involved, except for the pheasants. With Grady's insight to the land in Falk County, along with the relationships of ranchers and farmers he worked with as part of his job, he knew where to hunt. The area that we concentrated on at that time for pheasants was about 20 miles as the crow flies from Grady's ranch. It was an area prime for upland game. South Dakota Game Fish and Parks managed a program called walking areas in croplands that were recently put back into grasslands via the Conservation Reserve Program, CRP. Several adjoining sections totaling about 7 square miles of habitat for wildlife made up some premier hunting grounds. I fondly remember those days that quickly disappeared and seemed like a lifetime ago. Grady's dog, a black Labrador named Brandy, was the key to locating most of those pheasants we harvested in the late 1990s. And the hunt with Bill that day was no exception. I had just gotten my chocolate lab Mickey the summer of 1997, and she didn't know anything about hunting yet. She was still a puppy, and at one point we left her with Grandpa so we could push through a low area. When we got back with a few birds, lo and behold, Grandpa had walked a bit near the truck and with the help of Mickey downed a rooster. What a day. Grandpa would have been 78 years old at the time, by my calculations. I can only hope and pray that I will be in similar shoes if and when I make it to that age. We put in a few miles walking across the prairie that day, and the effort brought a well-earned exhaustion for the men and dogs. I think we filled our limits, 5 hunters, 3 roosters apiece. Maybe you can get an accurate count in some of the pictures. So here's another photo. I'll read the caption, then describe. Bill with the dogs and roosters after a good day afield in Falk County, South Dakota, October 1997. So Bill Ferguson's kneeling down there, and it's just him with a pile of roosters. Looks like he's holding 2 roosters in his left hand and 1 in his right hand. There's a bunch of them on the ground in front of him, and a dog flanking him on each side, Mickey on his right side, and Brandy on his left side as he takes a knee and kneels down in the mowed area with the I think that's intermediate wheatgrass in the background there. It's really a good stand of grass there. And Bill's smiling quite a bit there, finally. Not the stoic expression of the other photos before that. Then another photo. I'll read the caption and then describe. Grandpa's great-grandchildren with a nice bounty of pheasants after our great day afield in October 1997. From left to right, Whitney Ferguson, Katie Ferguson, and Kristen Heitmann, each holding a rooster. Behind them is Caitlin Heitmann. Photo taken in Grady's driveway at his ranch in Falk County, South Dakota. So this is a nice setup photo where all the girls, the great grandchildren from Grandpa Hagen, they're sitting there on the tailgate of Grady's Dodge pickup, and it's pretty it's pretty interesting because I don't know, well, those kids are probably ranging from 5 years old to 2 years old. I don't know what the exact ages are, but they're just young kids, young little girls holding up pheasants. And there's plenty of pheasants, roosters there on the tailgate, and then they're holding some up. And Caitlin's standing up in the background. It looks like she's got a name tag on. It's like, hello, my name is. And I think what had happened is the women had gone into town because I think there was like a little during the pheasant opener or pheasant season. Maybe this was the pheasant hunting opener that weekend. I don't know. But I think Falkton, the town there, had a little craft sales, and the women would usually go to that. I think the kids had gone along too, and I think Caitlin had gotten a name tag there, and she was wearing it on her shirt. So it's a really cool picture, kind of documenting the history of hunting pheasants out there in the late 90s. But back to the chapter. Bill never came back to hunt with us. It was a weird deal, and I don't have all the details pertaining to the story behind why this was Bill's only pheasant hunt with us. It is my understanding that Bill shared his weekend pheasant hunting success with some of his coworkers. That wouldn't be a problem, except the world is full of jerks. Backing up just a bit, we had sent all the pheasants we bagged that day home with Bill. We'd either skin them or we had just cut the breast out of the birds, washed them up, and bagged them for transport. That does technically violate the rules of transport. You should have the wing, foot, and head still attached for identification by any game warden during transport. But once the birds were home, you could finish the cleaning job and stick them in the freezer. That should be the end of the story. It still bugs me a quarter century later. I guess Bill's coworkers at Citibank were jealous of Bill. Apparently they were envious enough to anonymously call the game warden. Bill was cited for some violation after being questioned. Rules are rules, even though the spirit of the law was not violated. I guess pheasants were confiscated, and that was enough to sour Bill on South Dakota tradition. Maybe someday, enough time will have passed, and we can reconvene at Grady's ranch and create some modern memories. And here I have a couple photos. 3 photos to end the chapter. And I'll read the caption and then try to describe a little bit. My Browning Satori South Dakota Conservation Officer model. Saturday nights when I was in Sioux Falls for my monthly South Dakota Air National Guard drill obligation, I would kill time perusing the guns at Shields Sporting Goods store. I picked up this used, unique shotgun sometime between 1997 and 1999. It is in pristine shape and sports some beautifully finished wood in the stock and forearm. It is a double barrel over and under model. I only shot it once on a dove hunt and seemingly couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with it, so I stick to more traditional pump action or semi-auto shotguns if I want to more than just look good out in the field. And this is a photo of the shotgun. Like I said, I just bought it at Shields. It's more of a piece of art, I guess. Actually, I don't have it on display now, but I used to just display it on a gun rack in the basement, my mom and dad's house for a long time there. And it's got some beautiful, beautiful finished wood on its stock and its forearm, and got a gold trigger. It's a Browning Satori. So I don't know how much that costs. Probably at the time, I wish I could remember. I'd say probably like $600. So it's quite a bit of money I bought for a piece of artwork, really, because I never really hunted with it. And I don't know, just got a really nice look. Classic looking gun. And then I have a second photo of the gun here. It's more close up detailed. And I'll read the caption, then describe. I thought I'd just throw these photos of the special shotgun into this chapter because it involves conservation officers. As I mentioned, I've only used this gun once in the field. In the future, I plan to get it out on a real South Dakota pheasant hunt with hopes of making some positive memories and getting some photos of it with its beautiful finish out in the sunlight. If it doesn't work out, I'll be content to just have it displayed on the wall of my den in a gun rack as a work of art. And this is a close-up of the bluing and metalwork between the stock and the forearm there. And you can see it says South Dakota Conservation Officer, and it's got some of the details of the engraving and the checkering in the wood on the stock and on the forearm wood there. It's got a close up of the gold trigger, kind of the signature of the Browning firearms. And finally, one more photo. I'll read the caption and talk about it. This is another detail of the trigger guard of my Browning Satori South Dakota Conservation Officer shotgun. It has the engraved image of a badge with number 4 in the center. I wonder how many were made. So this is on the bottom of the trigger guard. It's got the metal work just around the trigger to, prevent accidental firing. If you're not familiar with firearms, it's got a rounded piece of metal to protect the trigger. And engraved on this trigger guard, it's got an image of a conservation officer badge. And it says on there, South Dakota Game Fish and Parks. Then above that, conservation, and the bottom, officer. In the center of the badge, it's got the number 4. It's just pretty cool. Very unique in my mind. Like I said, just more of a piece of art, I guess, hunting art to display on your wall. But maybe someday in the future, get up there and back up to Grady's ranch and lug that gun around and take it out in the field and see if I can actually shoot a pheasant. That'd be good for a podcast video if I could do that in the future. Have somebody film me trying to shoot a pheasant with my over/under conservation officer model shotgun. And I should say it's a 12 gauge. It's 12 gauge shotgun too. So it's your probably traditional upland game / pheasant gun, and put that on the bucket list, the to-do list for the future. Get that gun out there. Anyway, that's really the end of the chapter. And as always, we have a quote to finish out the chapter. Quote, "My object, all sublime, I shall achieve in time, to let the punishment fit the crime." End quote. And that's a quote from William Schwenk Gilbert. And he was an English dramatist and partner of Arthur Sullivan. It's a quote from the Gilbert and Sullivan comic opera, The Mikado. And so you um, may be familiar with Gilbert and Sullivan. They did a lot of musicals, stage shows, I guess, back in probably the 1800s. I don't know if it was late 1800s, but they had, I can't remember what they, all their multiple musicals that they wrote together and composed the music for. So it's a very famous, a very famous quote from from one of their musicals. So anyway, that was the quote I used because of the crime that was committed, the quote unquote crime that was committed for this illegal transportation of harvested pheasants, legally harvested, but then not. We didn't complete the mission by leaving heads and wings and feet on the birds for them to be transported legally. So Grady and I just probably as much to blame, to be fined by the authorities, and someday maybe we'll get some real justice so the punishment fits the crime. Maybe a stern warning from the conservation officers rather than, you know, a monetary fine and taking the pheasant breasts away for being consumed by the family. So anyway, maybe not the best heartwarming, happy ending to this chapter, but informative nonetheless. So that's it. That's chapter 41, the pheasant hunting part 3, and got it into the record today, and makes me feel pretty good to finally get back to getting some chapters finished, edited, and now put into the record for the podcast and posterity. Good memories. Good memories of Grandpa out there actually hunting with us in his late 70s. That's amazing. Be like me out there hunting 21 years from now. So something to look forward to. Anyway, that's it. That's the end of that chapter. And for those of you listeners that just are interested in the Colonel and the Kid memoir part, that's it. You can drop off. But those diehards that want to stay on, we have a little bit of information to share regarding the peripheral recurring segments. So we'll jump into them. And I have corrections today. Well, it's more additions. I don't know if it's any corrections going on, but I did want to follow up on some stuff that I talked about and just kind of left hanging there. And that was where I have lived in the amount of time I've lived certain areas. I can't remember what the context was that came up, but I'd been thinking now that I've lived the plurality of my life here in Santa Fe, New Mexico now. But according to my little lists I put together, it's actually very close between South Dakota and New Mexico as far as living in a certain state anyway, because I did live in different towns in South Dakota. But it's weird because I did move back to South Dakota here from 2023 to 2025. I was technically living in Fort Pierce, South Dakota, but I still had my house here and I had my main address and most of my financial stuff, if you want to call it that, was based here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So it turns out it's probably about, I think it was 20 years that I lived in Groton, South Dakota. And then before I moved to Fort Pierce, I had 19 years in Santa Fe, New Mexico. But then combination of moving back to South Dakota for those 2 years in 23 through 25, and then now back here for 1 year back in New Mexico. It's like 22 years to 21 to 20 years, I guess, 22 years in South Dakota, and 21 years here in New Mexico. So by the end of this next year, it'll be evenly distributed between 22 years in New Mexico and 22 years in South Dakota, and then some peripheral other places where we moved around a little bit. And I had 2 years in Iowa, in Ames, Iowa, and 2 years in Pflugerville, Texas. So I've been away from South Dakota m- most of my life now. So that's interesting how time goes by and changes the percentage of places where you lived if you move away. So it's really it's interesting to me. I just statistically just to look at that, but maybe maybe it means nothing to anybody else. But I don't know. I guess what do I call myself? Can I consider myself to be South Dakotan, or am I just New Mexican now? Probably just New Mexican. I guess I consider that my home now. So that's one update. I don't know I don't really want to consider it a correction, it's just more of an update. And I also wanted to to follow up on the dry cleaning prices because I think I had said it was about $20 or under $20 for the dry cleaning. The ticket was on there, and I bring that up because yesterday's podcast I talked about an accomplishment of getting my cavalry uniform dry cleaned. So I was wearing my cavalry hat and had the dry cleaning hanging on the boxes back there for display and reference to. And it did have the ticket on there, the price ticket. So I looked at that before the podcast today, and it was like $21 and some odd cents. So there was a trousers and the top, a wool trousers and wool military top. So it was about $10 a piece plus tax to get those dry cleaned. And seems like a fair price to me. And having said that, for those watching the podcast, you can see that I'm wearing the podcast hat today, getting back in the groove, getting the chapter 41, really the first chapter of volume 3 into the record here. And glad to be wearing the podcast hat, my custom made cowboy hat. And I'm pointing here for those watching to the O'Farrell Hat Company box. That's the hat box cover for my special custom hat. Just enjoy wearing it for the podcast, and highly recommend them if you want a custom hat made especially for your head. You can see, looks good. Looks good. Looks like I'm a professional podcaster with this hat. I guess I don't know. Do professional podcasters wear hats? I guess most of them wear headphones, so they probably don't wear hats. So strike that. Strike that from the record. We should edit that out. I won't because that takes a lot of time to do that, and I'm not going to bother editing stuff out today. So that's it. That's the corrections slash additions to the podcast. And now we're moving on to the Major League Baseball update, sponsored by Teener Baseball. The book I wrote about baseball. There's the poster in the background. You can see that. And here's the book itself. Still a good book to read to start your summer off, or if you're at the beach or something like that, you want some humor in your life. There you go. Teener Baseball, a book about mine and my younger brother Garrett's baseball adventures, playing baseball in Groton, South Dakota. This is a fictional version. It's been dramatized and maybe add a little more humor to, or funniness, absurdity to the book, but loosely based on winning some championships and state championships in teener baseball, living in Groton, South Dakota. So, want to kill some time? Go ahead and read a book about Groton, South Dakota, aka Reedville, South Dakota, because it's a fictional account of stuff. So I made up a fictional town to talk about, and you'll enjoy it. There you go. And that's the Major League Baseball sponsor, Teener Baseball. And we gave the update yesterday. The Twins, I don't know if they're playing today or not. Maybe they have the day off, but they lost yesterday, so their win-loss record is 27 wins, 33 losses, and they are headed for the probably the basement of at least the Central Division in the American League. Probably going to be one of the worst teams in baseball, I suspect. I mean, they're hanging in there right now, but I don't think they're going to get any better. And their injuries are even starting to pile up more than I have ever remember this. So I don't have high hopes for them. So that's it. Same as yesterday for the Major League update. However, we do have more sports headlines that I wanted to talk about. Starting with, I'm going to keep, this is going to be like a routine update. I have canceled my NFL ticket. That's specifically on YouTube TV. So I do subscribe to YouTube TV. That's my main TV watching app, if you want to call it that. And you have to have that to get the NFL ticket. It's an NFL Sunday ticket, whatever it's called. And I'm waiting to see if they have offer me some special welcome back offer to come back to and subscribe. It's about $500 a year. I'm just seeing if I can get a deal out of them. Maybe not. We'll see what happens. They have not contacted me yet to come back. There's still plenty of time before football season, so we'll see. See what happens. I will keep that as a note and a reminder to give that update each podcast if it seems relevant. I just wanted to bring that up. Even though I had talked about it yesterday. Nothing's changed from yesterday. Imagine. So I did talk about the Las Vegas A's also, and I think I had said something about researching some of their players. They're good players, and I did remember they had a really good. I think they had the rookie of the year last year. Yeah, by the name of Nick Kurtz. He's a first baseman, and he was the unanimous rookie of the year for the American League. And he did have a 4 home run game as a rookie. And it was, I guess there's the spark and the hope of maybe the Las Vegas A's will be my team, and they do have a star player, unlike the Minnesota Twins, and they have nobody that's really close to anything of that level. So I'm inching ever so close to maybe getting a new team. Las Vegas A's are not in Las Vegas yet, so I'm not going to jump ship until they have a home, a real home, a permanent home, because they're playing in Sacramento right now, which has got to be just a bummer, a bummer for them as a Major League Baseball team, and you're playing in Sacramento, California. Oh well, no offense, Sacramento, but you're not. Well, you're definitely not Oakland, thank goodness. But you're not San Francisco or any other California team, San Diego or LA. You're in Sacramento. So sorry. But I wanted to say that this was a reminder when I did look up this kid. I'll call him a kid, Nick Kurtz. He, with his 4 home run game, it reminded me that we get some sad news. Bob Horner, former Atlanta Brave third baseman and rookie of the year for 1978. He passed away at 68 years old last week. And it's kind of just sad reminder to me because I remember him as having a 4 home run game. And that's one of the things that was highlighted in his obituary and all the stories that came out, talking about his passing away. And for me, there's some special memories of Bob Horner because when I was a kid, we had just first gotten cable TV when we lived in Groton, South Dakota. and we had access to WGN, which had the Cubs during the day because they didn't have lights there yet. So they always played day games at the Cubs when they were playing at home. And then we had the Braves on the Superstation, WTBS. So I knew the players for the Cubs and the Braves up and down their lineup. I just knew them. I knew all these guys. And Bob Horner was one of those guys that I remember playing. He was a good player. In looking up more information after he passed away here, I didn't realize that he was Rookie of the Year. And also that he was drafted in June, and like just a few days later, he didn't even play in the minor leagues. He went straight to the Braves team and started playing straight out of college. I think he went to Arizona State University, if I remember right. I should have taken some better notes. And he was the Golden Spikes, the Player of the Year. He won the Golden Spikes trophy. That was the inaugural Golden Spikes award in 1978, and he won a college World Series for Arizona State back then. And it's just, I didn't realize how good of a player and his statistically how good he was until I started doing some of this research. And then, and then personally, the one thing that sticks out in my mind was he had a maneuver. I don't know what you would call it, but he would be ready at the plate, standing there, ready to take the pitch. And if the ball was like low and inside, he would just like straighten his knees, and it would look so strange. It's just like this really exaggerated maneuver to avoid getting hit by the pitch. Even if it wasn't going to hit him, he'd just straighten his knees and make it look more dramatic than it was possibly. But that always stuck with me of how like cool and calm he wouldn't jump out of the way or get all, overly dramatic in that sense, but he would just straighten his knees and exaggerate that, make it look like it was more inside, try to get the call from the umpire, even if maybe it was on the inside corner of the strike zone. But I don't know. That's the one thing I remember about him. Just that maneuver. That's the one thing that sticks out in my mind. And 4 home runs in one game, which in my mind, I was thinking that they weren't being broadcast that day. And I thought they had some other programming. And for some reason in my mind, I thought they had interrupted whatever was being broadcast to show live his his attempt to get a 4th home run. But I did look that up. I Googled that, and apparently WTBS didn't even broadcast that game live that day. That was tape delayed because it was the inaugural Goodwill games, which Ted Turner had invented, and WTBS was the Turner Broadcasting System that Ted Turner had created way back when. And he had WTBS, and then he invented the CNN cable news network. And I'm sorry to say we have a double update on people passing away under the sports section today. Ted Turner, he passed away on May 6th at 87 years old. And of course, he's forever affiliated with CNN. But for me, more special was his broadcasting the Braves games on WTBS, that station that we got on cable for whatever reason, along with WGN, so I could see the Cubs games. But WTBS and Ted Turner once, I guess, fired the manager and managed a game. And so he had a lot of sports related stuff. And he was, I guess he did the Goodwill games, the inaugural Goodwill games, like an off year Olympics, trying to bring goodwill to the world, I guess. And he also had the America's Cup, which was the sailboat, the yacht sailboat racing. And I think that he won some of those America's Cups before. I think Australia had invented some fancy new keel for a sailboat, and then they had winning a whole bunch in a row after that. But Ted Turner, 87 years old, passed away May 6th. So we had Bob Horner and Ted Turner both passing in May this year. Kind of some, nostalgia there. It's like, Bob Horner's only 68 years old, 11 years older than me. It just seemed much older that to me because I guess maybe I was still felt like a little kid when I was watching him play baseball on TV like that and seeing it. And he always seemed like he was old, much older than just 11 years compared to me now. It's just it's kind of a strange relativism, I guess want to think about in how time goes by and the relativity changes. So it seemed like 68 years old seems pretty young to me to be passing away, especially when you were a prime athlete. So I don't know. I don't. I guess there was no report on what he passed away from. But and then Ted Turner, at 87 years old, he lived a pretty full life. Make it to 87. I think you've outkicked the coverage on that. So I think the average lifespan for man in this country is still probably around 81, 80, low 80s. So good run for Ted Turner. So that's it. That's wrapping up the sports update. Glad I was able to remember to talk about Bob Horner passing and just bring up some good memories for me of watching that. And really, I guess I don't know if it was probably my peak time in baseball. I don't know if it's I maybe my peak time in following baseball at time because I had a lot more free time to be able to watch TV and just do nothing as a kid when I was you know in 1978, I was 9 years old. I guess I didn't see him at the beginning, but, like in 1980, 81, 82, that time I was able to, as in 1980, I was 11 years old, 81, 12 years old. So that was probably peak time to be a kid. And as a boy, you're following baseball and playing baseball yourself, little league, stuff like that. So anyway, good, good memories associated with that. Sad to see them pass away, but time marches on. Anyway, I don't think I really have much more to say today. Probably wrap it up. I was thinking about see if I could find another personalized license plate to talk about, but I didn't do that. Didn't do my homework there. So it'll be a shorter podcast today. We'll keep her on the edited side, the efficient side of the podcast today and kick off the again, Kurt on the Kid podcast. This is season 3 now. Chapter 41, the pheasant hunting part 3. So that's it. I'm going to sign off. And of course, we always say the 3 B's: be positive, be assertive, be proactive. Those are the 3 B's that you need to remember. Try to make your life a little better, enjoy life. And of course, we don't say goodbye. We say see you later. And I leave you with this. As always, knock and the door will be open to you. Seek and you'll find. Ask and you shall be given. So that's it. Another day, another podcast. So we're starting to get rolling on the volume 3 of the Kurt on the Kid podcast and look forward to seeing you next time. See you later.